Hi everyone, welcome to January 30th, almost the end of the month here. Let's take a quick look at what is happening in the markets. Before we get started, this video is for information purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before investing in stocks. Okay, all right, so XLF, the strongest sector of the day, financials, as we saw as it overtook 38, it has just been kind of on an upward trajectory, but it is reaching some resistance here at the 39.8 to the 40 mark, which could maybe possibly consolidate it and have the 5-day catch up to this up move here. But so far looking good and progressing through that through that zone. And above 40 would be kind of the area where just a lot of strength could come in, as that would be new highs with no previous resistance slowing it down. So a good look on XLF, and especially today with it commanding higher from that 5-day. ITB, interestingly, we had a sell-off with the earnings from DHI, but you can see how it's almost a higher low here, and the one concerning thing, however, it is that we do have a higher low. However, there's a divergence in the RSI. So in this side, we had the low forming up here, and then we almost touched the same level, and the RSI is much lower. So you can see that divergence here. The price a bit above, but the RSI below that. So this could just be a rebound. We'll have to see how it interacts with this resistance up here. And maybe it is waiting for a few more earnings in the space to decide direction, but some hints pointing to the downside here, although it is one of the stronger sectors today. XLE pushing through and taking that gap, and looking good ever since it touched that 80 mark. It is kind of on an upswing. However, the chart is not something that it's just a very sideways type chart, so it needs to kind of form some base and maybe consolidate for a bit if it wants to use this as support and move higher. Although the resistance after it kind of gets through these areas, there is a bit of a clean run until that $100 mark for XLE. So some final resistance is coming into play here with these previous highs, which could push it down. But if not, then we could have a retest of that bottom trend line. So just interesting action so far, just marked in yellow on XLE Energy. Material sector looking decent, with kind of pushing above that 5-day today and taking over that resistance, and also pushing above that 5 weeks so far this week. But it is so close to call that we would want to wait till the end of the week to decide that. TLT actually had so this is on the weekly chart. We can see a few down weeks, and then this week so far has been up, but it is contesting with that 5-week up there, and also that 5-day coming through as resistance. But you can see that it is kind of bottoming out here and pushing up. Now what remains to be seen is after the FOMC, if this resumes this upward direction, closes some of these gaps here and moves up, or does it start to move down? And gaps are very prevalent in TLT, so you can't treat them as the same as a stock that you would for gaps acting as resistance and stuff. But just something to note, there have been heavy transactions here in the past on the 96.60 level that could act as top resistance and push it down. But getting through here, then we could start moving a bit higher, and that would be great for growth type stocks on TLT, and also really good for IWM. And so that would be one thing. IWM and TAN would be two sectors to watch based on the reactions for TLT. XLP, consumer staples, look like that this resistance would get the best of it, and it was pushing it down. But this is on the daily, so this 200-day actually came to play and supported it, and then there's this move higher into this previous demand supply zone of it. So XLP kind of making a recovery here. XME is metals and mining. So that also closing above these two 5-day and the 20-day moving average. which is a good sign on the daily. If we look on the weekly, we do have this week so far decently above, 57.43 is the 5 week. We're at about 58, so about 50 cents away or above the 5 week. So, a decent development. There was a rejection here previously at the 58.50 mark for XME. So that could come into play again with some volatility expected this week. Lots of earnings, FOMC, lots of stuff going on with the rate path to be decided and those kinds of things. So XLV looking pretty decent so far with that coming in with that close above this week, that red area. If we look on that daily, we have reclaimed, so it looked like a breakdown, but seemed like a false breakdown, which is, a bullish sign, and then a move higher and gap up, and then we're back to kind of these areas which previously acted as resistance. And also you can see back above the 20 and the 5-day and being supported here by that. I believe this was a gap here, right? So we can close this gap now. It has been closed on the daily. And XLV, looking healthy. That breakout looked like it's going to fail and do a deeper retest, but that got picked up here, and that resumes that uptrend on the XLV. So back to green on XLV. XLY so far marked as red because the overall trend was down, but you can see that we did manage to not even touch this the demand zone here and take a turnaround. Close some of these gaps that we had here, and looking constructive so far with that close today, with the 5-day above the 5-day and the 20-day, and you can see how those moving averages have started to act as support now, which is a good sign. And so far the week is not over, but so far closing that day today above that 5-week moving average as well. XLI coming through with more strength here ever since this bottomed out over here. We are above the 5-week, so that is a good sign on industrials, and also holding that 5-day. We have this resistance coming through with this is the previous highs here from end of year last year, and also this upper trend line coming in at about $1.50 away, which could start acting as some short-term resistance on XLI. Utilities heavily dependent on the movement in TLT, so I guess waiting for responses about the interest rates here to see direction for TLT, and then in return direction for something like XLU. UUP just consolidating, looked like a false breakdown, got picked up, and then false breakout pushed down, so just like sideways consolidation on the UUP so far. S&P looking healthy still, and it moving with the 5-day supporting it underneath. We had a few days with it kind of testing the 5-day, and then this move higher, and this was yesterday, and so far just consolidating that move. Probably waiting for the QQQ earnings to come through this week, and obviously the FOMC. Okay, and USD CAD pair not looking the best here, but it is usually is a bit weaker before interest rate decisions. So we could see some volatility in this in the next couple of days here. IYZ is telecommunications still holding strong, and with that 5-day moving up with the support of the 5-day underneath, and you can see how well it supports the 5-week here. And a little bit extended from historic kind of, or just this up move here. You can see it starting to get a little bit extended with previous resistances coming into play. So you could see some sideways consolidation, but so far looking pretty healthy on IYZ. And by the way, IYZ is telecommunications. Mid caps also looking decent, supporting that 5-week here, and kind of consolidating this up move from the lows here. This was on 17th of Jan. Looked like it's going to break down, but kind of has moved up and consolidating. So some health coming back, healthy moves coming back into the mid caps. That's why I marked in green. KRE banks, regional banks, probably waiting for interest rate decisions, but just kind of hovering around those previous highs here. XRT is the retail sector, also looking pretty decent. So an expansion of the bullishness into other sectors, not just QQQ, which was majority of the movement last year, but now you can see some expansion into other areas, which is a healthy sign. I'm going to mark this back in green. It's a healthy sign for the market and for this kind of bull run to continue and probably move on to some of the other sectors like XLV, XRT, MDY, for them to start showing some strength. All right, IJT is small cap growth, and we have them above that that 5 week here and above the dailies as well. So also looking good here. XLC also looking pretty decent with the 5-day moving up, supporting it. Equally weighted QQQ kind of struggling a bit here. But overall what it's doing is sideways consolidation, but you can see starting to look like that 5 days becoming a little bit of resistance, but that has not been a problem before. And so far, all we have to say is that it is sideways and waiting for this week's major earnings in the QQQ. And for the market cap weighted, we are still also just hugging those two resistance lines and moving up. And we could have a move like this, a slow grind up here that happened end of the year with these resistances coming into play, but still just hugging it and moving up with it every day. So a slow move up in QQQ could still be in the cards based on earnings. And if those earnings don't come through, then we have some gaps below to fill on QQQ. IYR is real estate ETF, just kind of wedging here, possibly a flag formation with that up move and a consolidation down. So we have some alerts to keep a check on that, the flag being broken to the upside. And talking about flags being broken to the upside, we did have a flag here in IWM that got broken to the upside, and you can see how well that is being supported by that 5-day here with that movement up. So so far a decent healthy move coming through in IWM, marked in green. All right, XLK closing the day below that 5-day. Yesterday was able to take that 5-day close above it, but today negating that move and closing below that 5-day. And you could still say, because it didn't close above that 2 or 395, you could still say that island is in effect. Let me see if I can believe. I'm gonna see how to do this, but maybe with a brush. Yeah, so here's the island that is still in effect in XLK and SMH. AMD is also reporting earnings after hours, but that also has this island coming through. SMH has this island coming through, and so far not able to negate it. QQQ had that as well, and it was able to negate it, but so far these other sectors have not. IWC can possibly be changed away from that red now, with it being above that 5-day. I guess the reason why we still have it red is because we have not been able to contest and take over the 200-week moving average, and which is why we still have that in a red. So just a quick alert here to let us know if that 200-week is taken. Last two sectors, TAN, possibly still waiting for that decision in TLT to figure out which way to go. And XBI is looking interesting. Yesterday looked like we would kind of break through and start closing some of these gaps, but today we're back down to that channel, and so far flagging that down move and consolidating could possibly roll lower, especially with it being below that AVWAP level from the previous highs. Actually, let's just correctly draw this. This is the AVWAP from the previous highs, right? And that can be used as a stopping point if you're short, or a point to go long against if you're long XBI. But that is still coming into play over here on XBI, and that currently sits not too far away from price right now. So that's sitting at 89.22. Price is currently at 88.88. Okay, and just a few selected stocks. What is Tesla doing? A lot of folks interested in this one. So on the daily, what's happening is this major AVWAP from the 2020 lows coming into play here, and after a earnings miss, we had a close below that, and then some support here on the 180 level, which is coming through from these transactions that are demand. It's just a demand zone that has been an area of interest for Tesla buyers, Tesla stock buyers. And that they were able to push it through that 191, which is a good development. And you can see the other thing that happened is that push above that 5-day. Now, so when I say this with a pinch of salt, because the trend 5-day, 20-day, all still pointing down. So long-term trend is still down, so position accordingly. But a short-term trend could move up now with it above that AVWAP and above that 5-day today. So some, just some decent development here in Tesla, but be cautious as the long-term trend is still down. Microsoft looking healthy with it moving up, although I believe that reports today as well. Yeah, so Microsoft reports today after close along with Google, but that is neatly hugging that 5 days so far. IBM has been of interest, and that is consolidating this move with that huge earnings gap here. The trend is still bullish, but what is a good entry for IBM with these gaps? You could look at this earnings gap and make that a support level to trade against, for example, here. So ideally the gap would be let's see. Okay, so ideally when you're going to mark a gap, you would mark the open here and then the close here, but just not the way things have been working out. The price has been respecting top of the price action on gaps, which is not the ideal scenario, but that's just what I've been seeing. So that's how I'm going to mark the gap here. So you could, and see how the 5-day is supporting it here. So you could, probably trade IBM against this area, and as long as it maintains this gap, it is a healthy sign for IBM, and a loss of gap could be problematic. Now with that, more possibly a lot of people looking into this, you could have some fake moves with the volatility expected this week, fake moves in and out of this demand area, and so that would be something to closely watch on IBM. But trend overall still up for that. And Nvidia looking still decent, had that hug of the 5-day with it looking like it's gonna be below, but no closes below the 5 days so far. That trend just remains up, and with the further gap up today. AMD reports after close, but that looking a little bit different with it losing the 5-day, but you could see how this doesn't respect it as well. We have some closures below 5-day, with it still breaking out, and especially with earnings after hours, we could see some just profit taking going into that event, which is causing it to lose that 5-day. It is supported by that anchored VWAPs from before, from this earlier breakout in the mid-month. ARM not looking as healthy, with it kind of the resistance from above, with the volume weighted average price kind of acting as resistance. So until it can get above and close above this 5-day and this red box area here, it still remains in a short-term downtrend. Visa is interesting with the XLF acting decent. Today, it had a fake kind of gap. I wouldn't say like a fake, but it actually gapped down on earnings, and we had an open which is about $8 away from the price, but that got retaken up, and yesterday we closed into taking the previous highs, and today further continuing that move up. SYK reports after hours. We can see that there was a false close under this demand area, under this gap, but that what it did is close that gap, so we can now remove it. So closure of that gap, now moving higher, possibly waiting just for earnings, with this being the demand around the 305 zone being the demand area for possible further support if we see that it falls on earnings. MOD, I like the chart. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is it's in the auto parts manufacturing, with the auto industry not doing so well. But honestly, if I just look at price, it is looking like a good, decent action. The only thing that stands out here is the 5-day pointing down, but that's just because of this down move that happened recently, and you can see how that has happened before, and then that's got retaken up. So a curve up in the 5-day would be a healthy sign for possible trend continuation. But just, yeah, my only inhibition here is that auto company and consumer cyclical, which has been a bit of a weaker sector to start the year so far. Netflix finally had a great move into earnings or after earnings, and then a gap up here, and then now a retest of the 5-day. So possibly for Netflix fans, a possible entry point with a loss or closure below the 5-day could be your stop zone. The other way to trade it could be to take some of these gaps into play and use those as support. You can see there was a huge one here, and the one above that you can use as supports in your stops to trade Netflix possibly. Okay, so in interest of time, let's close that here. Hope you guys enjoy that. We went through some single stocks as well today, and I'll try to do more of that in the daily reviews. If not, then the weekly reviews. Okay, enjoy trading. Thank you.